Someone once told me my tomato vines were a threat to neighborhood harmony, and then slapped a $500 fine on me. Imagine that, just for growing tomatoes. That's the moment I realized I wasn't just planting vegetables out there. I was apparently sowing the seeds of anarchy. Welcome to Maplewood Estates, a place where grass has to be precisely 2 inches tall, and if you show even a hint of joy, somebody's liable to report you for it. I moved here chasing a bit of peace, a patch of land I could call my own, after years stuck behind a retail counter dreaming of the life my granddad once lived, growing his own food, breathing in the smell of tomatoes and basil at dusk. I never pictured suburban life as anything other than quiet, maybe even a little dull. Turns out I'd underestimated just how weird and dramatic a homeowners association can get. It all started simple. I dug up my little plot in the backyard, just rows of tomatoes, squash beans, nothing fancy, but every inch felt earned. 3 months I spent prepping the soil, mapping out irrigation, fussing over sun and shade. It felt right, like I was making something real. Until one Tuesday morning in September, one of those crisp days that makes you think about apple cider and football, I found an official-looking envelope stuck in my mailbox. Right there in bold, the HOA logo, and inside a violation notice accusing me of an unsightly agricultural display demanding $500 and threatening further action if I didn't rip out my garden in a week. You ever read something 3 times because it just can't be real? That's where I was reading, then rereading and getting more ticked off each time. The words felt cold and petty, like all my work, all my intention was just some public offense that needed remediation. Before I could even figure out if this was some weird prank, my doorbell rings. On my porch stands Lori Parker, the HOA president. A woman with hair so perfect you wonder if she ever even sits down smiling like she's auditioning for a toothpaste ad, but her eyes colder than February in Michigan. "Mr. Walker, I'm sure you got our notice about your little gardening project," she says, all sugar on the outside, all threat underneath. "While I appreciate your enthusiasm for homegrown vegetables, we just can't have agricultural displays disrupting the harmony of our neighborhood. I'm sure you understand." I tried to tell her my garden was neat, legal, barely visible from the street, but she just kept shaking her head, giving me that look, the one that says you're the dumbest person she's talked to all week. "You'll need to remove those unsightly plants or we'll be forced to pursue legal action." And that's when it hit me, my tomatoes, my work, all of it was an insult to her vision of suburban perfection. I stood there fuming, feeling the unfairness deep in my bones. This wasn't about plants, it was about control, about somebody else deciding what my home could look like. I called up Jack Foster, my neighbor across the street, retired military, steady as they come. Jack showed up with a couple of beers and the look of a man who'd seen this movie before. "Lori's been on a power trip since the day she got elected," he told me. "Last year she fined me $300 for my doghouse being too visible. It's all about making the place look like a magazine, boosting property values, and rumor has it she's lining up deals with developers." He paused, letting it sink in. "She wants perfection so she can cash in." That night, I went deep down the rabbit hole reading HOA bylaws, digging up the original covenants, hunting for anything that might help. Most of the rules were so vague you could drive a truck through them, but I noticed something odd. The so-called common areas, like the parking lot, were meant to be enhanced for everyone's benefit, not just maintained like a sterile patch of asphalt. That was a loophole big enough to drive my garden right through. Next morning, I get an email from Lori this time. The fine's been doubled now, 1,000, and she throws in a little dig about my rural background, not understanding civilized neighborhood standards. That was it for me. If she wanted to fight, fine, I wasn't backing down. I called Jack before sunrise. "You up for some gardening?" He laughed, the first time I'd heard it in months. "You're either a genius or completely nuts," he said, but we both knew it was time to push back. We hit the nursery right as it opened, picked out a sturdy apple tree, and headed to the parking lot, the ugliest patch of concrete in the whole place. Between cracks and broken pavement, we dug a hole and set that tree in, making sure it wouldn't block any cars. Jack stood lookout, both of us feeling like kids up to no good, but this time we were completely within the rules. I even installed a camera disguised as a sprinkler just in case someone tried to beautify it right back out of existence. The first twist came when I saw Natalie Brooks, the HOA assistant, walk by with her dog. She paused, stared at the new tree, then kept walking, never even reaching for her phone. That told me plenty about where the real community loyalty was. But Lori wasn't done. At the next HOA meeting, she's up front with her clipboard doing her whole pillar of the Community Act, but underneath the polite talk, there was a hint of venom. "Some residents are determined to undermine our standards," she said, eyes darting in my direction. I recorded every word. After the meeting, some folks started talking. A few confessed they'd been hit with weird fines too, like for wind chimes or sidewalk chalk. The older residents had that glimmer in their eyes, like maybe someone was finally standing up for them. The next weekend, Jack and I planted a couple more trees, a peach and a pear this time, spaced them out, did it by the book, took photos, got permits, all the works. Lori's response: a letter to every resident warning of unauthorized modifications and demanding respect for HOA authority. But this time, when she called an emergency board meeting to accuse us of vandalism, I came armed with the covenants receipts even before and after photos. The best part: 3 board members actually thanked me for making the parking lot less of an eyesore. For the first time, Lori wasn't getting her way, and you could see the cracks forming in her perfect smile. Then out of nowhere, Lori loses it. One morning I'm out watering my backyard when I hear yelling. There she is next to the apple tree, phone in hand, pointing and barking orders like a traffic cop. Later that night, under cover of darkness, she tries to dig it up herself. My hidden camera catches it all, her hacking away at the tree, cursing, sweating through her silk blouse. The footage is pure gold. I post it to the neighborhood message board, and by noon the next day, everyone's got an opinion. That's when the dam breaks. Anna Robinson, single mom from down the block, posts, "This is why my grandmother's rose garden was too colorful for HOA standards." Suddenly, the message board is a confessional, photos of violation notices, stories about mailbox numbers, even somebody's Christmas wreath that was too festive. For the first time, people start seeing a pattern, not just one cranky gardener, but a whole community fed up with pettiness. The real battle started after Lori hit us all with a $50 security and compliance fee, blaming the cost of investigating the trees on everyone. People went from annoyed to furious. So I drafted a community garden proposal, plans, covenants, a packet of flower seeds for good measure. I dropped them at every house, inviting folks to help plant more. Within 2 days, 37 out of 48 households had signed on, including families that had never so much as waved at me before. The board, caught off guard by the wave of support, and the literal paperwork, agreed to a 30-day trial period for the community garden. Even Mrs. Peterson, who'd backed Lori from day one, admitted watching her grandkids help plant a peach tree changed her mind about what community really means. But Lori's not a quitter. She called in a property management expert hoping for backup, but the consultant turned out to love the idea, saying fruit trees could raise property values by 8%. You could practically see steam coming out of Lori's ears. Of course, that's when she got sneaky whispers, rumors, people looking at me sideways. Next thing I know, the irrigation system for the new trees is mysteriously under inspection. The valve zip-tied shut, gravel poured in. Natalie gives me a look that says I wish I could help, but her hands are tied too. Suddenly, neighbors who'd just joined the project stopped talking to me. Anna's suddenly too busy to say hello. Jack, my old ally, tells me maybe it's time to give up. That's when Natalie shows up at my door. She's scared, but she lays it all out. Lori's been scheming for over a year, trying to sell off the common areas for condos, turning the place perfect just to pad her own wallet. Suddenly, everything makes sense. The fines, the push for perfection, the resistance to real improvement. Natalie offers proof, emails, call logs, and now it's clear this isn't just a garden spat, it's a full-blown community heist. We switched tactics. Instead of fighting Lori, we documented the good photos of Anna's daughter learning about apples, time lapses of neighbors working together. The message board exploded with positive energy. People who never talked started showing up to weed or water. The HOA's power faded as the garden flourished. But just as we started to think we'd won, Lori pulled her dirtiest trick yet. Late one foggy night, 3 people showed up with flashlights and hatchets, dousing our trees with bleach and hacking at the trunks. I caught every second on camera, Lori herself, right there directing the destruction. The next night, we filled the community center, me, Jack, Natalie, and half the block. On the big screen, I played the video of Lori orchestrating the tree massacre. The silence was electric. Then rage swept the room. Jack revealed his spreadsheet of every fine Lori had ever issued, over $15,000 in 2 years, almost all to longtime residents. Natalie laid out the emails proving Lori's secret deals with developers. Lori tried to bluff, waving fake city documents, but when I called the planning department on speaker and the clerk laughed out loud at her forgeries, it was game over. We voted unanimously to remove her as HOA president and make the garden permanent. The state attorney general's office got involved, and before long, Lori was gone, fined, shamed, and run out of town. Her house went to a young family with toddlers who can't wait to plant their own tomatoes. Jack became HOA president, Natalie took over as treasurer, and now Maplewood's budget goes to block parties and benches, not lawyers and compliance contractors. 6 months later, the parking lot is a thriving orchard, each tree adopted by a different family. Kids run between the rows, old folks swap gardening tips, and neighbors gather for coffee on Saturday mornings. We're even getting calls from other neighborhoods wanting to start their own community gardens. All because someone once tried to fine me for growing tomatoes. Last week, I found a sign by the apple tree former parking lot, now Orchard of Freedom. Community gardens welcome here. Don't know who put it up, but it says it all. We didn't just beat a petty dictator, we learned what it means to actually be a community. So let me ask you, where do you draw the line between rules and real living? Who decides what makes a place home? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear your stories. Because out here, every tomato vine tells a tale, and we're just getting started.